Good afternoon and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I've heard certain things about Laura Kuenssberg myself. There's unfortunately not a great deal I actually know about her personally because I don't really watch her program. However, there are certain things that have come to light that I feel like maybe I'm sort of wondering exactly where her allegiances lie, because I know there's a popular Twitter account called Laura Kuenssberg Parody, which she just... It sounds like the sort of thing you would expect to say if, like, she's got to be joking, and maybe by the end of this video I should be looking into maybe Laura a little bit more closely, because I wonder just what has brought about this video, and it's of course done by Maximilian Robespierre, so I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. So let's get into it. Is Laura Kuenssberg helping the Tories with non-stories? Well, to be fair, any paper that's going is straight up trying to make non-stories about it, outside of those who are openly admitting that Brexit was a mistake, from the Daily Telegraph. So here we go.
Hi guys, client journalism refers to a journalistic approach where reporters align themselves closely with those in power. And we had another example of it with Laura Kuenssberg on our Sunday show. She was interviewing David Lammy of the Labour Party and grilled him on the latest non-story being hammered home by the Tories, Angela Rayner and her tax affairs following the sale of a house 15 years ago.
Yeah, we already went through that, and literally for what Angela Rayner is on, it should literally not take any long at all to actually pay it, and it's already been done, and the Tories would like you to believe that the story is not finished, that there is more to it. They want you to believe that this is the Terminator genesis of news stories. One that we didn't need, one we don't care for, and one that doesn't actually mean anything. So, there you are.
So, the amount of money we're talking about is maximum £3,000. Loose change compared to what senior Tories, including the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, were struggling to explain. Have a listen to this.
Okay, we've been talking about transparency and legal advice. The newspapers this morning have new allegations about your colleague, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Angela Rayner, and the sale of her home some years ago and whether the proper tax was paid. Now, this has been rumbling around for a while. She has refused to publish the advice she said that she was given that says she did nothing wrong. Why doesn't she just publish it if she's so sure she did nothing wrong and just clear this all up?
But there's nothing new in...
Exactly. One, there's nothing new. Second, what difference is it going to make to me to know whether or not Angela Rayner owned a house or she paid her taxes or not? I mean, you could immediately say that it's got clear political significance if they could be trusted with money. But again, Angela Rayner paid it off. She put her hands up to it. She owned to what she did, and she paid it off. So where else do you go from there? That's the beginning, middle, and end of the story. She did what she was told to do, and she got on with it. So what did the papers say that? Do you really tell me you're going to believe everything the papers tell you? And what papers specifically? Is this, like the Eye, the Guardian, the Times, anything that is not the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, or the Express?
This story this morning.
Well, why not just publish it so she could move on?
Let me make the point. Angela Rayner has a blended family, effectively like millions of Britons. She did spend time in her husband's home, and they would have balanced childcare across two homes. That's perfectly understandable. She took the appropriate accountancy advice. She took the appropriate legal advice. She's not broken any rules, not broken any laws. This is a non-story. Why is the story up in the news? Because we have the May elections very shortly. We want to avoid talking about the fact that we have the highest tax burden in this country, that people are £870 worse off as a result of this Tory chaos. That's why we're talking about Angela Rayner. She has a blended family, like lots and lots of people, who balance childcare arrangements across different places.
Now, I know I've probably never thought about mentioning it before, but I actually really like David Lammy a lot, and he's one of the people I have actually quite a lot of time for, because anyone else who thinks about this for 1 second will know that these non-stories and people who try to stir non-stories don't try and challenge people like David Lammy about that. He will absolutely rinse you out. And that's, you have to, because he goes about this with several things that no Tory can actually answer up to, or anyone else, is that logic, guile, evidence, rationale, and the reasoning. All of these things, and I'm pretty sure I may have mentioned reasoning twice, but hammer the point home. You've explained it. There's nothing illegal being done anything about it, so there's nothing more to say on the matter. And yet still, the papers keep burdening this with this story that nobody cares about. Why? It's to make you think that there's nothing else going on in this country right now, and therefore Angela Rayner is as accountable and as guilty as anyone else. That's why they're doing it. Because they want you to believe that everything else is fine, and the only faults lie with their so-called enemies.
Some of your critics might say that people are talking about it.
People are talking about it, Laura. Which people? Because the people you're saying are talking about it is the Conservative Party and the right-wing press. The general public are not talking about it. The general public don't give a hoot about Angela Rayner's tax affairs 15 years ago when she sold, I believe, a council house. This is a story because the right-wing media want to make it a story. It's a bit like when Keir Starmer had a curry. Do you remember when Keir Starmer had a curry during the pandemic? The Daily Mail ran front page after front page for something like 10 days straight.
Yeah.
When it turned out he had not broken any rules because he had a curry at a work event.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Boris Johnson, no, don't talk.
Yeah, and I know people will still straight up try to make the excuse that Keir Starmer was doing something illegal. Well, he obeyed the rules were laid out, he followed them, and here we are. You tell me what's wrong about that. I think it's, and again, if you want to talk about a bit more about Boris Johnson, I think what is unprecedented, certainly about Boris Johnson, and a lot about the right-wing press and those who act out with their policies, is that they knew exactly what they were doing was wrong. They lied because they wanted to get away with it. Because some people literally think that if they can get away with it, that is all that matters. And if they hadn't gotten away with it, we never would have heard about it. They would have moved heaven and earth to make sure that they didn't look like fools. And bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, is that Johnson laid out the rules. We followed them. Boris Johnson followed, Keir Starmer followed them as well. Boris Johnson didn't, and how he was not kicked out of Downing Street on the spot when we had to pay for his fine is a question I personally want to ask. And probably quite a lot of other people as well.
Talk about Boris Johnson. And the same here. Angela Rayner is not in power. That's one aspect. And also, this is something that happened 15 years ago. Now, it's not because it happened 15 years ago that it needs to be swept under the carpet. It's the police have not investigated because there's nothing to investigate. Mm-hmm. There's nothing new here. Nothing new has come.
I know I went over the story with Gemma Forte yesterday as well, but I think it's worth repeating, is that why is Laura now trying to make something out of this, is that what exactly does she have to gain by making herself look foolish?
Come out. This is the Tories trying to find dirt on anyone within the Labour Party and bring it up before the general election, before the local elections, in order to try and, win over a few voters.
And by the way, they say win over a few voters. Have you ever noticed that the Tories don't do the same for Reform? They don't do the same for the Green Party, the Lib Dems. The closest they've ever done it for the SNP was when Sturgeon was being investigated because of her and her husband through mislaid funds and stuff like that. But yeah, it goes to show, ladies and gentlemen, is that again, I think deep down the Tories know that Labour is their only real opposition. But as the days go by and with more things like this, I think the Tories' biggest enemy is quite frankly themselves, because they've pinned themselves into a corner through their own bullshit policies and try to use business rifles to try and assassinate any semblance of the truth that actually happens in the real world to people like you and me.
This is them playing dirty tricks.
Because she won't just publish the full advice, and then if there's nothing there to see, then she could move on.
We haven't got any kind of constitutional convention I'm aware of, other than for prime ministers and leaders of the opposition, where they publish their tax affairs. That's the situation we've got. Why do we land on this northern woman who had an arrangement with her husband, a blended family? Why do we focus on her and say that she should be the exception?
Because she's from a working class background and she actually has working class values and she knows exactly what it's like with some of the most vulnerable members of society. That's why the Tories are feared, because they make themselves look like fascists, but they don't care about trying to improve their image. They just want to make sure that somebody else is removed. Somebody who actually has any semblance of knowledge of what goes on in the real world to ordinary people. That's why they're shit scared of Angela Rayner, is because, well, look at her. Look at where she's come from. Look at where she is. And, well, look at the people in power. How many times, as though they try and play that they're martyrs and they're better than us as well.
She shouldn't be the exception. She hasn't broken any rules. This is because of the May elections and the Tories not wanting to concentrate on their actions, on rising inflation, of cost of living, on rising utility bills. Those are the issues that we should be focused on, and those are the issues that they want us to obscure.
Exactly. He's completely correct. I'm not David Lammy's biggest fan, but he's completely correct here. This is about distracting the public. The Tories don't want you to focus on the cost of living. They don't want you to focus on a tax burden. They don't want you to focus on the NHS. They want you to focus instead on Angela Rayner and her tax returns. And when it comes to tax returns, of course, the Tories are not suggesting that every MP publish their tax returns, because that would be pretty embarrassing. Now, what should Angela Rayner do? There are two ways she can approach this. She can publish it and try and get it out of the way, or she can double down. Now, if she publishes it, then the Tories will just move on to their next victim.
Yeah.
They're not going to go, oh, okay, she has nothing to hide. Okay, let's stop digging for dirt. No, they're going to look into other ways. So either way, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. If she does publish the tax returns or whatever she has to publish, the Tories will will continue on her, or they'll move on to another member of Parliament or Keir Starmer or somebody like that. If she doesn't, they're going to continue using their tools in the media, like Laura Kuenssberg, it seems, to continue pushing this story, this non-story, and instead allow the public to be distracted from the real issues. Once again, we must remember Angela Rayner is not in the government. She's not making decisions for ordinary people. People like Jeremy Hunt, who owns 7 properties and had some issues with stamp duty. He's in charge, and he's making decisions that impact people's lives. But we don't want to focus on him, and we prefer to focus on Angela Rayner, it seems. This is all about distracting the public. It's a tool. They use it all the time. In the run-up to the local elections, try and convince the public not to focus on the disaster of the last 14 years and instead focus on Angela Rayner. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robespierre, once again. And, well, like I said again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not suggesting that Angela Rayner is, Little Miss Perfect or anything like that. But what I am suggesting is that when she's trying to be ridiculed through an absolutely nonsensical story, just basically designed to, I don't know, they're trying to make something out of it because they see Angela Rayner as a threat. But, well, that screams a lot about the insecurities of the Tories more than it actually does about the actual successes and the story of Angela Rayner. Exactly. What else am I meant to say about that? The only way I think that if I reckon, personally, if the Tories wanted to make fun of Joan Cox, I think they probably would, because that goes beyond the pale in terms of tastelessness, if you know what I mean. And, well, there we are. I hope all of you guys have enjoyed this, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.